Hi, and welcome to Deliberately Creative. I'm Stephanie, and I'm here to welcome you to my episode of #Love Autumn Art. It's running from August 17th through the 21st, and it's part of the Creative Arts Collaboration, a YouTube support group that helps YouTube creative artists get through the little hurdles and the little challenges that come with being an artist on YouTube. If you're interested in finding out more about the Creative Arts Collaboration and how you could join if you're a YouTube artist, please click down below in my description and you'll find the links to the actual application. This costs nothing except some time. Go in, learn, introduce yourself. Join us. We're going to make autumn leaves from paper bags that you can then paint on with acrylic paint. You could also draw on them with charcoal or pastels or colored pencils. So it gives you a multi-use surface to be able to do art on that really doesn't cost you much after you buy your bottle of clear gesso.
So here we are. These are the materials that we're going to be using for this particular project. We're going to be making these leaves, or leaves very similar to this. This was made with a different leaf. I'm going to show you how to get a pattern. You can then use that pattern as many times as you want. These are being made from Kraft paper, just your run-of-the-mill craft store bags out of Kraft brown paper, grocery sacks, anything that's the brown paper is going to work. You're going to cut it up into pieces to make it more manageable. You are going to need clear gesso. What that does is it gives your paper tooth so that it will accept colored pencil, it will accept pastels, chalks, paint, acrylic paints. Other things that you'll need. You are going to need a brush. Just any old brush will do. You're going to be brushing on the clear gesso. You're going to be using the clear gesso to seal the paper and to make it a little bit more durable. These leaves are now much more durable than this. It does change the color of the paper a little bit. I think you can even see that right here. This leaf has not been gessoed. This is just a piece of paper now. This leaf has been gessoed and it's ready to take any type of paint media. So let's get started here. We want to get some of these pieces of paper covered with the clear gesso so it can start drying while we make our pattern. You're going to be wanting to get some natural leaves. If you don't get that kind of leaf in your place, don't worry about it. Go online, do a Google image search for leaf outlines. Let's get started on this though. We need to have this paper gessoed. Clear gesso. Important that it's clear if you want the brown paper to show through so that it looks more natural like a real leaf. Free with this. I'm just going to sort of put some out on my paper. And I do have it on top of just a piece of paper on my drawing board, just in case I get a little excited about it. You're going to make just even brush strokes across. You don't have to take it all the way to the edges if you don't want to. Nice thing about this, it doesn't take a lot. You can just work this out. When you're done, you do want to wash your brush out so that you don't have gesso left in it. And I do recommend coating both sides of the paper. And I do like how it feels when both sides of the paper get gessoed. Just makes it feel more finished. You notice I'm not doing it all the way to this far edge. That gives me a place to hold on to it. You can do it all the way to all of the edges, all the way across. And yes, I'm going over the gesso. This isn't varnish. So you can go back and forth and over it and just work it into the paper. And because I'm not doing a real heavy coating of it. It's going to dry fairly quickly. I am going to flip it over and do the other side. This is not glue. It is not going to glue it down to my paper underneath. If you think that it might, you can always wait for the other side to dry. But I want to get this as quickly as possible so that we'll be able to get our leaves cut out in a reasonable amount of time. I am doing this real time, this part. When I'm cutting out the leaf, I think that you understand how to cut a leaf out or cut a shape out. So I will probably just speed that up. And while this is just drying over here, we're going to move it out of the way. Just move it out of the way. Now that our paper is sitting aside, the back side is almost dry. Front side still has a little bit to go. You'll find that one side will dry quicker than the other just because you've already saturated the paper on one side with the gesso. So when you flip it over, it becomes, the paper is more wet. But we're doing pretty well here. So now what we're going to do while we're waiting for that to dry is we are going to just grab any old kind of pencil. I'm grabbing just a colored pencil, just a cheap pencil, to trace around my leaf. And now I'm going to just throw this leaf down, and I can make decisions. Actually, I'm going to flip it over this way because then it will lay a little bit flatter. You'll find one direction will lay flatter than the other. I'm not going to worry about the stem because I can just cut that out. It's just going to be a rectangle coming off. So starting here, I am going to just trace around the leaf, and I can make decisions on if I want it to have as many pokiness pieces out. Pokey pieces. Oh boy, that's really good language there. I am just tracing around it. I am not being a slave to the shape. Just sort of getting a rough idea. If I run off the paper, this ran out of edge, I'm just going to make up for it when I cut it out with my scissors. I can trim things, I can make things sharper, pointier, I could round off the corners if I want to. I'm doing this just on a plain piece of white cardstock. There we are. This is going to make me a very nice sized leaf to be able to do a good painting on. But I want to have a little bit more surface. I don't want it to come down quite so far. I'm going to go ahead and draw around this a little bit darker for you. And again, I'm not being a slave to the shapes. The lines that I drew are just suggestions. Every leaf, even when it comes from the same tree, is different. You're not going to find any two leaves that are exactly the same, which is really cool because then you don't have to draw it exactly the way the leaf that you found is shaped. So even if you get one off of the internet, for an outline and you put it down, you can change, you can adjust it and make it your own. So you're not stuck with anything. I like that. Then I will just cut it out. This part is going to get sped up because you don't need to watch me cut out a leaf. My paper is still a little bit cold, which means that it's damp. I could dry this with a hairdryer. I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just toss a leaf on here. And let's see if I can get most of it on that way. All right, so here we are. We're going to line these up. If I go off the edge, or if I miss a little bit of where I didn't gesso or something like that, I can always catch up those little bits. I am going to go ahead and grab my white charcoal pencil, just because it's easier for you to see. And it's not putting graphite on my paper, so I will be able to wipe it off. You could, if you wanted to, draw around your leaf, get your pattern, and draw your leaves out on your paper before you gesso, and you can cut out your leaves. That's perfectly fine also. You will sometimes get a little bit more curling on the edges, which can be actually very pleasant and very much more like a natural leaf. Something that I like to do with any of my leaves is I will go and bend them a little bit to get some shape into them so that it feels a little bit more like a natural leaf. Okay, here we are, and you can just take an eraser and rub off that charcoal, or your white chalk if that's what you used. Now somebody might ask, why go to the trouble of making leaves when you can just go pick up leaves outside, bring them in, flatten them, and gesso them, and paint? And my answer is, yes, you can do that. But I wanted something that would maybe last a little bit longer. This is still not fine art. This isn't something that's going to last for 100 years and hang in a museum. This is fun, decorative art. I want to take a look at the real leaf and see how this goes. So if you look at this real leaf, it starts down here at the base, and it has these center veins going out to the center of each of the main nodes here. So there's basically 5 lines. So there's kind of a center line coming from the stem. And give it a good crease. Open it up. Then there's a line going from this one down to that center line. Now I'm not folding all the way across. I'm leaving this part right here not folded so that I'm sort of stopping at that center line. And I'll do the same thing with this one. Again, this just adds to a little bit of the realism. No real brain surgery going on here. This is just a little bit of fun. Just a little bit of fun. So last year, a friend of mine on YouTube, the Art Sherpa, was doing some painting on leaves. And that is where I really got started in deciding that I wanted to do some of these leaves out of the paper. There were several people that said, I don't get those really cool big leaves that I can paint on in Florida, or I don't get those really cool leaves that I can paint on someplace else. And my thought was, you don't have to have those trees. You can make your own. Where it's got the paint on, the ink on from the where the bag was made, that just goes to the back of your leaf. When you mount it, no one's ever going to see that it had anything printed on the back of it. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed finding out how to make your own leaves to do your own artwork on, please click like, click subscribe so that you can find out when I have more videos coming up. I will be doing another video using these leaves to do some artwork on. I'm kind of excited. I've got a really fun idea for it. So you might want to check back. Click that subscribe button, then you'll get notified when it goes up. Just a thought. So as always, I want you to go out and do something creative. Take care now. Bye. It's fun to do these kinds of doodles. Giving yourself an easy design to draw doodles into. That's all I did. Gave you some easy shapes to draw your doodles. And I'm going to rotate this just a little bit. I think this one is going